Ahorita nos toca el turno de darle la palabra ni más ni menos que a Peter Greenberg. Como sabemos, es el editor de viajes más tú las traes que hay en el mundo. Sabemos que trabaja en CBS News, que es reportero, que es productor y que, bueno, pues es la persona para hablar justamente del turismo y va a estar magistralmente entrevistado, ni más ni menos, por mi compañera Amy Glover, quien es hoy en día socia y fundadora de Agile. Adelante, por favor. Estamos a 2.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Peter Greenberg, the CBS travel editor. It's a real honor to have you join us for this reflection on the new era of tourism that we're facing. And you have the great benefit of having a view on what's going on globally. What would be the glimmers of hope that you could highlight for us as we look towards a post-pandemic world?
Well, before we get to the glimmers, let's get to the reality. The reality is there is no effective world leadership yet that's giving us one direction or one set of rules. In the United States, we're no longer the United States of America. We are the fractured states of America. Every state is operating in its own self-interest, and sometimes that's in conflict with their neighboring states. Overseas, there's no one form of accredited or vetted identification that would allow them to want to have me in their country to make sure that I'm not either at risk myself or risking others. And in the absence of widespread testing or a vaccine, we may be months or in fact maybe even a year away from being able to get that. So in light of that, now we can talk about glimmers. And the glimmers really are not at the state level. They're not at the country level. They're not even at the city level. They're on the private sector level. It's the industry itself taking the lead, not waiting for government regulations, because each government doesn't necessarily understand how it exists in relation to all the other countries of the world. It doesn't take into consideration airlift. It doesn't take into consideration the connectivity between airlift, hotels, and budgets, how you finance all this, and whether or not we may be, in fact, developing a new elite class of travelers, only the people that can afford to travel, even when they're allowed to travel. Now, the other glimmer right now, if you're going beyond just the private sector, is that while the current problem has redefined the process of travel, it has not in any way shape, or form diminished the passion for travel. So we just have to figure out new inventive ways that are thoughtful, sensitive, and practical to be able to get back to where we really want to be. And then on a case-by-case study, we can do that.
Excellent. And what do you see as some of the new trends that you've identified moving forward? I mean, how will travel and tourism be different in the short run, medium, and long term?
Well, in North America, we're really not going to bounce back. We're going to inch back. And the way we're going to inch back is by our car. In the 48 continental United States, we're going to do a lot more road trips. We'll start with maybe little 100-mile trips within that radius of where we live. We'll dip our toe in the water. Then maybe 300-mile one-tank trips. RV sales and RV rentals are spiking right now because people look at them as their own self-contained quarantine mobiles, allowing them not to stop at hotels or at restaurants, but they can just stop for groceries and gas and still see the country. But the interesting development here, and I said North America, that of course includes Canada and Mexico, is it gives everybody an opportunity to rediscover their continent in ways they've never done before. So the smart money is to not worry about national parks and state parks. They're going to be crowded. The smart money is to say, for every small town and city, this is your opportunity to shine. This is your opportunity to invite people to get off the main highways and rediscover America, rediscover Canada, rediscover Mexico. Change the law and the insurance rules in Mexico to allow Americans to feel confident and safe driving their cars across the border so they can rediscover Mexico as well. It's not necessarily going to be just airlift. Now, Mexico does benefit from great airlift when it comes back and a familiarity among so many Americans. You are our neighbors, so that's great too. But you're going to have to change some of the rules. and the rules being, it's no longer going to be, the marketing playbook has got to be thrown out. Everybody in the travel industry needs to take it and burn it, because in both the short and the long term, what we're dealing with here is not promoting anything anymore. I mean, I don't really care, and I speak for a lot of people here, about the thread count on the sheets or how many all-inclusive drinks I can have at the pool at the resort. What people want to know about is the process. How did you get that room ready for me? How did you get that airport ready for me? How did you get my transportation ready for me? How are you protecting me on any sort of tours I'm going to be taking? And it goes way beyond social distancing. If you go beyond 9/11 or go back to 9/11, what Americans wanted and what travelers wanted was a security blanket that nobody could give them at that point, right? Nobody wanted to fly over large bodies of water because they were afraid of terrorism. That gave us the TSA, and next thing you know, people did. Today, it's deeper than that. We're talking about a deep-seated emotional fear. We've gone from fear of missing out to fear of going out. And so if we're going to go out at all, we need to know before we ever leave home. In fact, before we ever go online, talk to our travel advisor or make a reservation, that everything's going to be safe. What's our comfort level? It's two things are at work here. What's our comfort level to get us there? The actual process of getting us from point A to point B. What's our comfort level once we get there? And then there's one other one that nobody wants to talk about. If something goes wrong, what's our comfort level you're going to get us home and we're not going to be trapped? Now, those are not easily dealt with, but if you don't deal with them, we're never going to come. So I'll give you an example. A number of years ago, way before the pandemic, I arrived in Panama City in Panama. And as I was going to immigration, there was a gentleman there who handed me a form. And I thought it was just something else to fill out. It wasn't. I looked at it, and what it said was, "Welcome to Panama. We just want you to know that on behalf of the government of Panama, your medical insurance now is totally covered. If you get sick, we're taking care of you. If you need to go home, we'll fly you home. Whatever happens, we'll pay for your hospitalization." I hadn't even cleared customs yet, and I got that security blanket. And that was before any sort of virus was overtaking the world. So think about what Mexico can do right now to proactively give people something like that, a reassurance that they can deliver on. And by the way, I asked the folks in Panama a month after I went, how many people have ever used that guarantee? It was 1%. But the optics were, I'm going to be okay. And for the 1% they took care of, they told all their friends. Guess what? It was okay. You have to deal with that going. I want to see, without changing your names to the hazmat inn, I want to see how you prepared my room. I want to see how you prepared the car that I'm driving in or the bus I'm riding in. I want to see what you've done in terms of social distancing at the pool that doesn't make it impractical and stupid, right? There are two good test cases that are going to happen right now, one earlier than the other. One is Las Vegas and one is Hawaii. Hawaii will happen later. But it'll be interesting to see, because when you get down to a definition of terms, what is travel? Large social gatherings in many respects, where you share experiences together in often confined spaces. So how does an entire country realign their approach to make sure that we get those shared experiences, we get to see the people we want to see and share those experiences with the people we want to share them with, and at the same time, practice basic common sense. But you can be proactive. You can be proactive. And you can't wait for the government to lead, especially your current government. I'm sorry, you can't. Your current government doesn't even understand tourism before the pandemic. So I'm sorry.
Sure. I mean, and I think that segues nicely into another thought. I mean, if you were both, the head of a large hotel chain or the head of, the tourism ministry in Mexico, what are some of the things that you would suggest because you know Mexico so well, how do you think Mexico can position itself, best?
It's not a numbers game anymore. It's an appearance game. You want to tell us that my experience in Mexico is going to be special just for me or the people that I love who may be coming with me. So the concept of mass tourism, you're going to have to take a vacation. It's not about how many people, how many room nights, how many people you can cram onto a bus, right? Same concept as the cruise industry. You can't do it. Now, that may mean that you're evolving, at least in the short term, to a much more elite group of travelers who will be affording it and can pay for it. But this may completely destroy the all-inclusive model in the short term. But you may have to destroy that in order to save it. Because right now, with the exception of a bunch of idiots in a pool in Missouri, you're not going to have a lot of people who you want to have visit come down there if they think that they're going to be in a pool of 700 people and on a crowded beach. It ain't going to work.
Sure.
So look at the beauty of Mexico. Look at your nearly 4,000 kilometers of coastline and tell me that you can't find a beach where you can make that special for me. You can. And the hotels there, now that you give me the title of head of a hotel, it's my job to be the enabler to make that happen for you. And even if my price point happens to go up 50%, people are so demanding to travel now. The people who want to travel and who can afford to travel will do that. And then you get the benefit of them coming back saying, it's great. Oh my God, I had the best experience ever. Not a problem. But if you want to go back to the old model and you let the accountants rule the asylum with mass tourism, you will suffer the consequences.
And I thought, since you know Mexico so well and love Mexico as we all do, whenever you travel somewhere, you're left with an impression or something special that happened to you while you were there. Tell us a little bit about, when you think of Mexico, what is it that gives you that fuzzy feeling?
Well, there are the obvious choices, but I'll give you the one that people tend to forget, and it starts with C, the conversation. My special moments in Mexico happened when I found the time, or the time was afforded to me, to actually spend time to talk to people, to learn their story, to immerse myself in their culture, to learn a new craft or make a new dish. I remember, oh God, this goes back maybe 8 years ago now, where I was immersed in the kitchen at a hotel in Mexico City, and they introduced me to the almejas chocoladas. Oh my God, I live for the chocolate clams. If you've never had them, right? But that's all I can talk about half the time. But how did that happen? It started with a conversation, not a brochure, not a guidebook. I need to know, and I think the traveling public especially now needs to know, that when they land or arrive or sail, however they arrive in Mexico, that there's somebody there who is excited to share with them their history, their experience, their culture, to have that conversation. That's all it is. If you don't have the conversation, why would you ever leave the pool, right? And the people who come back to Mexico all along are the ones who found that conversation with a housekeeper or with a front desk clerk or with a bus driver or with their scuba teacher or with the local fisherman that went out and not only caught the fish with them, but then cooked the fish with them. That's what you need to go back to authentic Mexico here. Because in any country, when you want to talk about authenticity, you're talking about the conversation. And then, speaking of that conversation, you got to get your story out. That's where guys like me come in, right? How many people in Mexico in the travel industry have approached me in the last 2 months to say, how soon can you get down here and tell that story? You know what the answer is? 0. Are you nuts? Now's the time for strategic thinking. I know I may not get down there next week, but you better get me down there by the end of July, or you're going to lose the rest of the year. And it's not just me, it's my compatriots at all the other networks and all the other outlets, whether they're streaming, network, cable, whatever. You need credible, trusted people down there to tell your story, because it's been my experience, whether we're dealing with political unrest, civil disturbances, natural disasters, or a medical crisis, if I get down there and people see me there and I can tell that story, guess what happens? They go, well, if he can go, what's stopping me? Because I'm not going to recommend something that I don't truly believe in. Nobody can pay me any money to say that. I have to do that myself. And you need folks like me to get down there. Don't wait. As I said before about the private sector, don't wait for government tourism to have the press come down. The private sector needs to do this now. Set it up now. Otherwise, you'll lose the rest of the year. And you'll be in a committee meeting in which nobody leaves the meeting.
Peter, that's excellent advice. We're very appreciative of you participating in this CNET event. I'm Amy Glover, estadounidense por nacimiento y mexicana orgullosamente por elección. Thank you so much, Peter. We want you to come down as soon as possible, and we'll be giving you that call very soon.
You got it. Thanks.
Take care.